Good afternoon and welcome to Women Speaking. Today's conversation centers around citizens' preparedness for the 2026 elections. With the elections right around the corner and the electoral roadmap already in place, conversations around the preparedness of the citizenry, their awareness and their interest in the electoral process has been prevalent. Issues around what we anticipate the challenges will be in these elections, as well as what they already are also conversations that are at hand. So this is a discussion that is clearly pertinent to have, and I am very honored to have an illustrious panel to break down this discussion, whom I shall introduce from my extreme left coming in. On my extreme left is Miss Ruth Katamiriki. Ruth is a lawyer as well as a PhD candidate at Makerere University. Good afternoon and welcome to the show, Ruth.
Thank you so much, Danita.
We are honored to have you.
I'm also happy to be back to the space.
Okay, then. This is going to be an amazing discussion. And right next to me is a very familiar face. I do not think I'm going to welcome you to the show, Nancy. I think you and I should be welcoming Ruth. But, ladies and gentlemen, as you well know, Nancy Caroline Ayot is a feminist lawyer and a writer. She is with us every week. Good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for inviting me and for welcoming me. I'm very happy to be on the show, as always.
We are very, very glad to have you. So like I said earlier, today's engagement is around the citizens' preparedness for the 2026 election. Earlier this year, the Electoral Commission rolled out the 2026 electoral roadmap. Right now, we have just concluded the special interest group elections, and right now we're having National Youth Council, the youth elections at a certain level. I think we have crossed over to the village election level from sub-county. Now going forward, we're also having parties themselves nominating the candidates that will be that they will be having stand for them, and later on in the year we're going to have the Electoral Commission go ahead and nominate the candidates themselves. So it's clearly a very exciting period in the electoral process in Uganda. We've been having a lot of debates around qualifications. We've been having a lot of debates around who is going to be standing for each party. There's a lot of interest around that. Some people are withdrawing, some people are persisting. It's a very, very interesting time in Uganda's season. But I would like Nancy to go ahead and open the show for us today. Nancy, in regards to just basically where we're at in the electoral life cycle, where we'll be going, as a member of a political party yourself, you can give us the insights from inside, what things are looking like, what you are seeing, some of the challenges you anticipate, just on a broad level, because these are things we'll delve into a bit later on.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much for this opportunity. So in the electoral cycle right now, we are talking about the youth elections at village level. And whereas that has been a relatively successful process because it's nearing its conclusion before we go to the district level and all that. While we've encountered a number of challenges because elections just don't come as elections. For example, we've had of presentation of school children in some districts to vote. I don't know how the Electoral Commission is handling that, but we've also heard of some candidates talking about being excluded, candidates from other parties that are not the ruling party. But overall, I think the atmosphere has been relatively peaceful. I've not heard of tear gas and big army trucks. For me, it's a big plus. Coming from the Kawempe North by-elections, it's a very big plus, and it shows that we are totally moving in the right direction. But we've also had certain big stakeholders talking about how the army should not really be involved in national elections. They should stay at our national borders. And for me, this reflects what people are thinking about for January and Feb, right? However, at this point also, we have political parties who have not yet had their delegates conferences. Then those who have just had their delegates conferences and they are dealing with issues post-delegates conferences, like the issues of raging, like the issues of party divisions. But it's a very excitable environment because this is the time that people are forming alliances.
Yeah.
This is the time where people are crossing parties, and so I am positive that we will see different shifts. But a big question that also remains in our political space is the fact that opposition politicians continue to be persecuted. With Dr. Kizza Besigye still in prison 6 months in, people are wondering, is this, you know, there is even speculations that he may be released after elections, if ever. But, you know, there are legal procedures involved in this, so I do not want us to dwell so much on it. And also other political prisoners, other people are being picked up, the kidnaps are still going on, which is alarming. But at the same time, many young people have come up to express interest in elections at youth level, at parliamentary level. I have the privilege of belonging to some of those political groups of young people, the Northern Forum, the National Youth Forums, and all that. And it's exciting to see the candidates they support. And you will also note that more people are joining the NRM than most parties. And that's a thing. It's a truth that we must accept, because many people are joining, and you can tell from when people are picking nominations that a lot of them they close the road around Fairway Hotel, where the NRM Secretariat is, and because there's so many people coming in, there's a lot of traffic, and I think it's a good thing because it shows a positive political environment, despite all the other things that are going on. But we also need to question certain controversial issues that are coming up, like the age thing, where many politicians who are very old are still coming up to pick nominations from their parties to run for those same political environments. And young people, and well, no, not just young people, but many people around the country are saying this is not right. We need to see some type of evolution in our political environment, which hints to the transition question that has been big in our political atmosphere this year. So I think that is relatively where we are. We are moving forward, and perhaps very soon we're not going to have many politicians in Kampala. They'll be going back home to actually
praise the Lord.
to praise the Lord, to attend burials, but also to be with their people and court their votes. And it's going to be exciting to see who comes up. But also we've had of a number of young people come up and express their interest to contest for the first office in the country.
Yeah, I think I've seen about two.
Yes, we've had one on our show here.
Yeah.
Yes, Miss Yvonne, we've had her on our show here. So I don't think that this political environment is very different from the previous one. However, I think there are certain new things that are coming up that are charging the environment, and it's really exciting to watch.
Yeah, it really is. Another thing, you mentioned the delegates conferences and how some parties have not had them. Just so that we can understand more as the viewers, what is the relevance of a delegates conference?
Well, the delegates conference helps members, the different political parties, to choose their leaders, from the Secretary General, the President, and also to choose a candidate that they will present for the first office, if they want to present one. But it's a good thing for the organization of a party structure, because it delegates the responsibilities that are supposed to be there, so that people are more organized when the real campaigns begin. No, I'm not saying that these campaigns are not real, but when the Electoral Commission opens up the stage for people to show the country what they've got. So it's very important also, and by law it's supposed to happen a year before the national elections. So right now we are in a very funny situation, because almost all parties have not adhered to that, except the FDC, because when the FDC split, they had their delegates conference, and they organize the structures once again. So right now we are having a different type of thing going on, but also we have parties which are just being formed. Yes, the PPF itself was just given the green light. So but those ones, they had their issues with the Electoral Commission and everything. I feel like their issues were more political than administrative. So but they're bringing They're
life.
bringing things together.
Yeah.
They're bringing things together. We're seeing new people join, but also it's interesting to see the dynamics between the ANT, the FDC, and the PPF,
yeah.
because those are the same people.
With differing viewpoints at a certain level, but
Yes, but
fundamentally. the
yes,
same.
yes. But also it's interesting to see the Democratic Party and the DP bloc, or the Democratic Alliance,
Yeah.
because there are accusations being hurled right and left and center. But you know, it's also sad the oldest party in the country split that way.
Yeah.
And the DP bloc and its relationship with the NUP is also really interesting. So there's so much going on, really. But at the stage of it, we wonder how ready political parties are, considering some of them are just doing the things they should have done a year ago right now. And perhaps that is why the equation is less balanced between the ruling party and other political parties. Because while other parties seem ready, while other parties are getting ready or are just getting on their marks and cleaning the house, the NRM is already giving out nominations, and it's receiving so much media attention, and they are getting more people joining their parties. So yes.
Yeah, it's quite a soap opera we have going on in the
Yes,
country.
yes, yes.
I think it's had all of us hooked. Ruth, I'll bring you into the discussion right now. So we're obviously talking about the citizens' preparedness for the 2026 election, and preparedness obviously cannot come without awareness.
Yes.
Where do you think we're at at the awareness level of the citizens, but then we'll bring in the different stakeholders and their roles in it, the Electoral Commission, the politicians themselves, as well as NGOs, wherever it may be.
Okay, thank you so much, Danita and Nancy, for this amazing conversation so far. I love the overview that Nancy has given the show.
Yeah.
You've set the bar so high. When it comes to preparedness, I wouldn't, if it's on a scale of 1 to 10, I think we are still bad. I think many things that Nancy has been pointing out make me think, are we really ready for elections early next year? Recently, when we got to Nancy has mentioned a bit of the political parties. What I wanted to maybe bring in from the citizens' perspective comes from the voters themselves, okay? We had a population census not very long ago, and the biggest percentage of people in this country were named as the young people. And I think they're comprising about 28 to 30% of the voters as a voting bloc. But when I was looking at the analysis of the previous elections, at least 2016 and the most recent election, the analysis was that the voter turnout, especially amongst young people, was at 73%. That was in 2016. And this dropped to 68% in the most recent election of 2021. So youths who should comprise a majority in voting are not turning up for the voting process. And this makes me think, what are we doing to make sure that this trend does not happen come next year, a few months from now? Is it going to go down a bit lower than the 68 that we registered last year, in the previous election? But then when you deeply analyze these patterns, you see that it's actually the youths between age 30 to 35 that turned up the most in the 2021 elections, because their turn up amongst the youths was at 90 to 95%. And interestingly, the 18s to 21 had a turn up of about 4.5.
Yeah.
And yet you'd think these are the most energetic people. So it worries me that the most energetic people, the people we always love to say that the youth should be in charge of things, but I don't know if they are ready as a people, as young people. Are we ready for this? But also, maybe we shouldn't blame the young people. We shouldn't put the burden more on the young people. What strategies is the Electoral Commission to see that this demographic changes, to see that this pattern changes? What is civil society doing to see that they turn up and vote? Because Nancy mentioned something about the age and the conversation around transition, and seeing older people going out more to pick nomination forms, and the young people are not going. So for me, I was looking at that and I was wondering, are we really ready? Are we planning to do something different? But also, another thing that, from what Nancy was saying, that maybe the violence, Nancy noted that the violence patterns have changed. There has been lesser violence. I don't know what to say about that.
At least thus far.
Yeah, that's this far maybe.
No, I was thinking about it compared to the Kawempe, which was the height of violence in the country. And this time, at least we've not reported dead people. Which breaks my heart all the time. So, yes.
So I think I note that as well. But I want to think that terrain has been a bit of silent and a bit quiet and calm. And there is this dichotomy: is it silent or is it a strategy? Are people going to NRM because they love NRM, or because we think it's more peaceful there? That maybe police you'll not be a target for violence, you'll not be a target for all this that can happen, the brutality that can happen to you. So that's another thing I'm thinking about. But when we come to the preparedness of the citizens, I don't know. I really don't know what to say, because when last week, was it Friday, when the youth elections at the villages were happening, I was discussing with one of the candidates in those elections. She is of the opposition. She belongs to an opposition party, and she says that she votes in this particular village. When she checked with the EC, that verification of your details, that is where she was meant to vote. And she was actually running for opposition in that village. And when she reported to vote, they told her, you're not voting from here, you're voting in another village. And
it was the EC that told her?
Yes, that's what they told her. And so, and it's not her. I think you mentioned that one of the party leaders, opposition party leaders, was also mentioning that.
Bobby Wine mentioned that about 80% of the youth were barred from voting in their areas.
Yes, so those discrepancies that are happening in voter registers, I don't know whether that tells us that we are ready or we are not yet ready. And if we still have enough time to verify that and to correct some of these things, because if you're looking at the roadmap, I don't think we are still at the level of verifying and correcting of voter registers. So if this is what is happening now, I don't know what will happen in the general elections to come. So regarding the preparedness, I still think the terrain is a bit quiet and silent, but I think the various factors that are informing the quiet and the silence, maybe the violence of Kawempe is part of the reasons why the terrain is quiet and silent, that many people are withdrawing in a way.
It could be, but also now I think there is perhaps a deliberate shutdown of media in order not to cover the reality on ground, because most of the times when we come here, what we talk about is that the perception on media is very different from the reality.
But maybe another thing that Nancy mentioned, that other political parties seem like they are not yet there. That one political party, the NRM, seems like they are ready, they are moving, they are on track, they are advancing, while others are still being formed, others have not yet held delegates conferences, others have not even started the primaries and nominations of who is going to be representing where on their party card. So it could be looked at that in that way, but maybe there are factors that are influencing this move of one party seems prepared and another does not seem prepared. We've seen how PPF has struggled to get their party registered, and that deliberate delay that is happening. So I think there is a lot that we need to look at when it comes to preparedness.
That is true. So I'll just pose a question to you ladies. When we speak of awareness, maybe not you, Nancy, because you're intimately involved. When you speak of awareness, I think one of the best thresholds you can utilize is your own self. Do you feel like you've been made aware of the electoral process in this country?
Because I don't know if I'm the objective person to answer this.
Just as an average citizen.
As an average citizen, well, if I'm to speak for myself, I think I know that next year I have to vote. And I know that is happening. But I was wondering, because the statistics showed that between the ages 18 to about 24, only 4.5 turned up for voting in the previous election cycle. And these are young, really these are the young adults. most of them are voting for the first time. At least some of us could be voting maybe for the second time. But most of these in this age bracket are voting for the first time. They are still university students, most of them, they're still in the education cycle. So I do not know whether the communication strategies that the Electoral Commission, alongside other stakeholders, including civil society, are taking on, are covering this age bracket. Because actually I think it informs why, when you look at young people as a demographic, we had mostly between ages 30 to 35 voting with 95.5, and other categories between, I think, 18 to 24 lagging behind, because most people in the category 30 and above are not voting for the first time.
Yeah.
So the people who are not voting for the first time in 2026 know what is happening, and probably they can make up their mind on whether to vote or not to vote, but at least they know something about the process. But those who must be voting for the first time, I don't know if they are fully aware. I'm voting for the second time next year, so maybe I know that I should show up, but I think there is need for voter education that is tailored, and communication that is tailored for this category of people who are voting for the first time.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, what I was asking is because I'm one of those who would be voting
For the first time.
Yeah.
in a more structured society. And if I wasn't actively partaking in this
Exactly,
show,
you would not
I
know.
would not know
Exactly.
that, hey, in Feb, I think it was Feb 10th was the last day to register to be part of the voters register, and I didn't know that
Yes.
until I was reading up on preparing for the show. So it was
Yes.
it really stuck to me.
Yes.
And even though I knew that, I learned about it quite late. So I ended up not being able to register.
Exactly.
So it was because I actually had to go to my polling center and stand there and do that.
Yes.
And that was not something I could do from a whole other district away.
Yes.
So it was a very disappointing thing for me.
And I think that experience you just shared explains why most young people, again, might not show up on the voting day come 2026.
Yeah, it's a very disappointing thing,
Yeah.
but I guess it is what it is in typical fashion. Anyways, Nancy, I'll bring you into, when we speak of stakeholders, the most primary stakeholder in this discussion is obviously the Electoral Commission. And when we're asking about preparedness, we're obviously asking, has the Electoral Commission done their job? Have they fulfilled their mandate in regards to civic education,
Yes.
in regards to voter outreach, in regards to all the structures and systems that are necessary for a citizenry to be informed, aware, and participatory in a voter process? Are they doing their role? Have they done it? Is there a will?
This reminds me of last year when they first made known the roadmap, the electoral roadmap.
Yeah.
They made it known when we were, I think, on item number 5 or number 7
Yeah.
already. Parties had not verified certain things with the Electoral Commission, which had been on the list of things to do. A lot of people were not aware that there was actually a roadmap.
Yes.
And so we were at a conference, a conference on democracy or something, and said, "Oh, by the way, the roadmap." And I was like, "No, no. What do you mean the roadmap?
Yeah.
The roadmap?" And they were like, "Yeah, the roadmap. This is like the time. This is."
Wow.
And we're like, no, that's not right. And I think since that time, certain things that are supposed to be done with the Electoral Commission, we cannot say for sure that they've been done, because there's always other things to cover in the news. Uganda is so controversial. There's always some big news, some big political news to follow, and the real political issue, which is elections and the premise of democracy in itself, is not adequately covered. So for me, that is already a big issue. Secondly, the Electoral Commission is very partisan.
Okay.
I say this with my full chest,
Yeah.
because they've not made any effort to actually prove otherwise. They are very partisan in the way they treat the candidates, in the way they treat parties, in the way they exercise their bureaucracy and everything. And you talked about how the PPF took forever to actually get their party card. But imagine, it's because they're relentless and because they're the who's of this country. A lot of the who's of this country belong to that faction. Now imagine if it was just a youth-based
Political party.
or fighting for young people. no, aside from the NUP, but like youth, like 21-year-olds and like 25-year-olds, I don't think they would have managed to get through. But also, the exercise in the Kawempe North by-election was a terrible, terrible precedence for us. It was a very terrible precedence in which the army was complicit, in which the Electoral Commission was complicit, in which the Human Rights Commission was complicit. Because they had a duty to actually educate the voters. And the thing is, the voters were enthusiastic. That's why they knew. And they're in the city. That's why they knew about these things. They knew about these things. The demographic knew. The parties are the ones, the political parties are the ones who went down on ground and did most of the education. Actually, it's the enthusiastic parties. But now parties who are not so enthusiastic about it, their candidates had to go door to door and actually do this type of education. And you know, you're telling people, oh, your vote matters and all that stuff. And like, you're not that relevant, you're not coming in the vehicle. And some of these things affect how people receive the message. But also the monetization of our elections means that when you're informing people, you're going to have to say like, this is a packet of salt. You come and vote. Your vote is important. See how I measure it with this packet of salt. Not in a negative way, but that is what is happening on ground. People are given 2,000 shillings because they do not want to hear about voting. And it reflects on the relationship between our leaders and the people. The leaders are so far off from the people that the people feel like when they come on ground, they must extort as much as possible. It is sad. Also, the Human Rights Commission, I've seen adverts, I've seen on TV, I've had a few announcements on radio. I don't know about the initiatives that they have done to go on ground to actually change things, but they have not, I don't think they have made the enough effort to actually do their job. The Electoral Commission has not done enough, in my opinion, to actually create awareness, to sensitize. And when we talk about sensitization, we also talk about where they come into point out loopholes and, you know, violations of the law, like voter bribery. Nobody has been arrested for that. People have been filmed doing that, and they've never been disqualified. So what is that? What does that say about them? But also, I want to bring in another faction that is really important in all of this. This is the judiciary.
Yes, please.
Yes, the judiciary. And it's really disappointing during this time. And no, I'm not going after individuals. I know that our political climate is difficult. I also know that at a certain point, when you're fearing for your job or for your safety to begin with, it is very difficult to make the right decision. But a lot of decisions that have come out of the courts have not have not been subject to the law, to say simply, or precedent that has been put forward. So it's like sometimes somebody asks you as a lawyer, you're like, this judge said this despite the evidence. What happened? What branch of the law is this? And you're struggling to explain things because you don't know. We are all blind because we don't know the scripts that we are following. Or perhaps we know the script we are following, and we just know that it's not the right thing to do. So everyone is stammering, stumbling, doing a lot of things that they're not supposed to do but are helpless. So it's what we always say on this show. We said the state has been heavily militarized. Even the consequences come in swift when you do not do what is expected of you by the regime. And this is not me speaking because I belong to an opposition political party, but because I see it from the evidence presented forward, and I know it from the helplessness of people around, of the young people who are contesting, the people who talk to you on the phone and they say, you see, I'm running for this position. However, we need to create two plans. Plan A for when we are attacked by the military. Yes. The escape routes and everything. Then plan B to actually blindside them so that we are not attacked at all. But the point is, they could still discover us because they have access to our phones, they have access to our locations, and this is abuse of of privacy that is going on, and the candidates, once you enter the political cycle like this, you do not have it anymore. Because I think also a lot of candidates, you know, politicians are crafty, will say things like, oh, the police did this, oh, but we know that these guys actually brutalize each other, because brutality is not just with the police alone. The candidates do that to each other. I had I had the unfortunate chance to listen to a member of parliament at some point advise young people in politics, and he said, you know, for some of these things you need to scare people, rough them up a bit. And I was like,
Wait, where was he saying this?
it was an organized conversation for young people by an organization, and you could see the organizers flipping their heads because they were shocked at the information that was going on here. But this is advice that the mentors of young people in politics tell them, because we've normalized this thing so much. It is very unfortunate, it is rough, and the Electoral Commission has showed time and over again, you know, with the way they even sometimes read figures that do not reflect in the DR forms in favor of the ruling party. We've seen it with the Kawempe by-elections. So it's hard, it's difficult, and I just know that 2026 will not be easy for anybody at all. For nobody, not for the Electoral Commission, because I fear that there is people coming in to say we resist. But that's the problem with an environment that normalizes ugly things, because it means that there is radicalization coming up. People are ready to counter violence with violence. That's terrible. That's terrible. What are we going to have? What are we going to have? And it means that a lot of lives will be lost if this is to continue.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That was quite elaborate and a bit disheartening, but also very realistic.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that insight from you. Ruth, to bring you back into the conversation, Nancy touched on a very important aspect, which was the judiciary. When we speak of the judiciary, we cannot speak of it independent of the other law enforcement mechanisms. The police, the army, and those have been members and other security forces that we cannot exactly pinpoint, but their presence has been actively felt in the electoral cycle. And forces of this nation have aligned themselves with them without necessarily giving us an exact idea of who they belong to, where they belong, how exactly they are legally coming into the picture. So when we speak of citizens' preparedness, when we speak of people's interest in elections, obviously one of the things that comes to my mind as someone who would want to vote is, will I be safe? Will the law enforcement make me safe? Will they man the polling stations in a reasonable and democratic manner? Will they care for me? Will we have the other forces coming in randomly?
I'm sorry, when you say other forces,
it looks like an invasion.
No, nothing like that. But it's just a little bit funny because now we do not know. We have a whole other unit that is unidentified, that exists without any provision by law and is not checked. So it is funny in a very sad way.
And they're very conveniently active.
Yeah.
We give them that. So when we have that conversation, do you as a citizen feel safe with the law enforcement with the law enforcement at hand? Do you believe that they will protect you? They'll protect the electoral process, and they would actually, those that are necessary would come in where necessary, or that those that are unnecessary will be kept out?
Interesting. I was actually thinking of it. When we ask, do we feel safe to go and vote? I think it takes us back to the question of why are we voting? Because when you see a lot of deployment on the day of voting, when you look at images of the brutality that can happen, many people would rather refrain. Not many, but some people would rather refrain from the entire process than go out and maybe rather be a target of brutality. So it puts us in a very rather sorry state that people are okay, would rather not show up than show up without the assurance of voting, but yet with a higher expectation of maybe being facing violence on that day. So it shows a picture of maybe many people might actually rather refrain because I think we saw last year's election, the previous election, but some of these things scare us as citizens. I get scared. I'm like, I would rather stay home maybe than go out and face this amount of violence. But also there is that category of people who would rather stay home. But there is also another category of people who would say, if you're going to take me out of my home, give me a reason to get out of this home. So that person, you'd maybe give her a hoe, you would give them seedlings of coffee, you'd give them a bar of soap, you'd give them salt, you'd give them something material that they are sure, at least I will go out because this person brought us soap. I will go out because this person gave us hose. So that violence takes away the meaning of the voting process. It takes away the meaning of why people have to show up and vote in the first place. Because now we are no longer showing up to vote because we want our voices to be heard, but I'm showing up because someone gave me a reason to show up. And the reason to show up is not because I agree with their ideas, I do not agree with their manifesto, I do not believe in this party's manifesto, but at least their candidate gave me soap. At least their candidate gave me, what do they give? Maybe 5,000 Uganda shillings. So I think this dilutes the entire meaning of elections and why people must show up and vote. I don't even think that it is still, because, sorry to sound scholar, I hate sounding like an academic.
But you are what you are.
But this idea of democracy comes from it's old scholars like Hobbes who are theorizing a place of without democracy, without a civilized society that has their power handed over to a particular body. Hobbes says that life is short, brutish and nasty, that people will not be able to take care of themselves, people would be, in the words of the Gen Zs, unruly, everyone would do what they want. So for us to avoid that state of anarchy, you'd rather hand over your voter rights, you'd rather hand over your power to a sovereign body that should be in charge of you, make decisions on your behalf, plan for you, and make things happen on your behalf. But that is no longer the state. I believe it's no longer the state. People no longer believe that when I go to vote, I'm exercising my right to hand over the sovereignty I would have had as a person to this person to be part of the government so they can plan and make things happen for me.
Feels like a one-sided social contract.
Exactly. It is no longer a contract involving two parties. It is now one-sided. So what do citizens now resort to? Citizens are now in a place of, if you want me to show up, give me a reason to show up. And also that shows you something about the relationship between economic status and the politics of this country. That, of course, first of all, if you do not have money, you're not going to run for any position. But also, if you do not give the voters money, they're not going to vote for you. So that place of, I don't know, that place of ideas, that place of making things work because we believe in someone no longer exists. So when this again is met with violence, it even makes it worse. So for most people who may get out of their houses in 2026, I think a lot of work has to be done to convince them. For some, it is the campaign of a protest vote. But for others, it is going to be, what have you given me in exchange for my vote? It is no longer, I'm voting for you, so I have to hold you accountable when you do not do this, this, and this, and this. Because actually, as you've said, in the one-sided social contract, you don't have, that means that citizens no longer have the leverage to hold someone accountable. Because you did not vote for them because you believe they're going to do those things. You only voted for them because they gave you a hoe. So you erase that part of holding your leaders accountable. And I think it's a deplorable state.
I think other people are also thinking of boycotting elections because that has been a famous hashtag also.
Yeah,
on
and that's
social media.
dangerous.
Yeah.
It's dangerous, but many people believe that whether or not I vote, it's the outcome is the same.
Yes.
And the result is the same. So why show up, really? And it's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. You know, the preconceived notion, the notion of that. I already know who's going to be my president.
Exactly.
I already know who's going to be my area MP.
Yes.
Well, these things are already done.
Yes.
In fact,
So
I could tell you today. It's a very unfortunate and disheartening experience. I think it has been something that I've been personally battling with as a citizen. So when you speak of the boycotting elections, I think that was something I've also thought I've dabbled with. And I wonder, because especially
please show up.
no, but I think that also because we reduce our elections to the presidential elections.
Yes.
So we don't bother to analyze your LC elections. But who your LC one is will affect how you live in an
Most
area.
of us cannot go to university without
Exactly.
your LC needs to sign something. Is it the Punjab form?
Exactly. The security of that area.
Yes, they do. They
very dependent on them.
Yes, the LC, the RDC, the leaders at local council determine how a place works. There's a reason why the NRM invests so much in local council elections, because they're able to exercise and consolidate power better at ground level, at the grassroots level. It's the reason why you cannot stay in a lodge as a presidential candidate of another party, because the LC already has your number, he already has your roadmap, and he knows that you will be in this city tonight and they're going to close out all the lodges. It's how you'd never get access to a radio station to campaign, because they have already invested. And these are elections where I think the NUP found new perspective and they decided to send in young people, and not young people, more people to vie in those local council positions, even the youth elections. But unfortunately, they also had their number.
Looks like the plan didn't work out.
As well as it should have.
How utterly unfortunate. So Nancy, still on the stakeholder conversation, NGOs, we've had conversation after conversation about NGOs and CSOs in particular, you know, civil society organizations, and their role in the electoral process, how their role has been impeded traditionally. And this is something that I think Honorable Miriam Matembe often emphasizes, that, you know, when they came into power, they built up civil society organizations so that they could fill in the gap that, you know, the government would typically miss. But because they're entities without which our system cannot function democratically and sustainably. And yet over the last few years, we've seen them be systematically attacked, systematically broken down, influenced, all manner of things, both at a local and international level. So when we see the 2026 elections and we look at let's look at, first of all, their traditional contribution to an election process, and then we look at their contribution right now and what we foresee.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, during the election cycle, and the election cycle begins with, you know, the roadmap and those activities, consultative activities. And let me tell you, even with this restrictive environment, the NGOs have done great work. Great work in training leaders themselves, in getting them ready for this process, but also in sensitization on ground. And the work that is left, which I'm sure they're going to have a big problem with, is the observation of elections. The observation of the elections are going to be tough. Last elections, a number of NGO actors were arrested and charged. You know,
treason.
Yes. So I have a colleague in the NGO sector, and she said, you see, there's this thing out of the country, this opportunity out of the country. I need to go and represent my people. They asked for a police report. I got it and I told them, you guys, I was observing elections and they labeled me a terrorist. So this is an act of this prosecution was unjust, but it happened and it's on my record. You need to grant me leeway. And so this is where we don't know what's true and what's not. So if somebody can produce a police report and be like, this person did this person raped, and it's going to come up a lot during this time. You don't know who did what for sure, because they have utilized the justice system to prosecute people so much. But now for the NGOs, we have an impending problem. the review of NGO laws, which is, I think, a way to legitimize the actions that are going to be taken against the NGOs in the future, especially during this election cycle. The review of NGO laws says that there should be more regulations of the NGOs, that they need an apex body, that they want to complicate the reporting process, write reports, do this. The bureaucracy is going to become more intense, but also unnecessary, seeing that we already have some of these bodies governing NGOs working and operating, by the way, as some of the best more than some of the sectors in this country. There's it's one of the most, like, the strongest institutions going on right now. And in the review of the NGO laws, now the government seeks to control the funding. Control the funding, but also the operation of the NGOs. That is to say that the funding should be put in a national basket. So that all NGOs will be able to get the funds from that national basket. Secondly, also for the government to prioritize what areas are more important to invest in for NGOs. Oh my God, that would be terrible, because if we decide that areas such as governance, which the government has cracked a whip on, are not priority, that means that we're already going to lose out on what has already been done. We're already going to lose out on the voter education. We're going to lose out on the training of leaders. We're going to lose out on a lot of capacity building activities, but also on election observation from a very objective perspective, because they will not be part of any parties. But the thing is, I don't think that our government takes the criticism very well. They do not want to hear it. They don't want it to take place. And remember the State of the Nation address, the president said that we've had many issues that we've dealt with. They were not that much of a big deal. One of our biggest issues was negative activism. So the work of NGOs have been tagged as negative activism. And there's a word that they use on Twitter. They say paid activism. Oh, well, yeah, people should be paid to do what is right. Well, what is wrong with paying somebody to advocate for what is right? What is wrong with paying somebody to actually call out wrongs? There is nothing wrong with that. People need to work and operate on a salary. Imagine doing what is right and then getting paid to do it. I feel like it's a win-win for a person in that situation. But then again, I digress. So the NGOs are going to face a lot of stringent measures, and the review of NGO laws is most likely going to pass. That means that there will be no money directed to what is important, which is the governance of our nation, or very little money, and it will be directed in such a way that it favors those who closely ally with the NRM regime. That is my opinion. And the NGOs are now going to have to struggle to suck up to the high command. So that means that we will no longer have independent service delivery, especially in areas where people have none, because we've also had situations where the government has outrightly said we're not delivering services to this region because they've not voted the people in the party, in the people of the NRM party, and the people who filled in those gaps, albeit very slightly, are the NGOs. So if the government controls the NGOs, who will deliver services to those people? Where will the right to dissent be? Who will have the right to dissent? So I think, like many people who say, there's no point in voting. I'm not saying there's no point in voting, but I understand it when they say the result is the same. I also understand it when they say that there is so much control that there is very little you can do about it. They might as well just declare this country a monarchy, because it is happening. The militarization is deep, and it's not that people are going to roll over and accept it. Of course, when they declare is when some people's advocacy efforts will double, and they'll be like, no, this is not what we signed up for. This is not what we wanted. We left this a long time ago. but also it makes me believe that we're going back to pre-1986, which is where we started from the very beginning. We're going back to us. It's like we are on the inevitable lane to anarchy, like you scholars say. So we are on that inevitable lane, and I do hope I'm wrong, though. I hope I'm wrong, because
I do hope with you.
yes, I do hope I'm wrong, because that would be devastating to our economic development, to social well-being, but also to rights of women that we've already achieved over time. We know that women have been weaponized as a tool of war all over the world. We're talking about Gaza, we're talking about Iran right now, and I feel very twitchy because I feel like Uganda is heading there, and that is bad. We see it in the way our activists are arrested, in the way policemen handle women on the road, and in the rates of femicide in the country that have not been adequately addressed until today, but also in the way people are neglecting women's rights overall as an issue, and saying that now we're moving on to new things, and yet there's new problems like climate change, technology affect women the most when you look at it from an intersectional lens.
So, wow, this has been a very, very deep conversation. So we're obviously heading to the last area of the conversation. So I'd like to pick both your brains, starting with Ruth and then coming to Nancy, in regards to any other challenges you anticipate we're going to be facing in this 2026 electoral season.
Wow.
I know it's quite a broad question.
I think the challenges really, Nancy has mentioned some of them, the increased regulation of maybe the NGOs, parties in the opposition side, but also I think we might have challenges around election irregularities, because we had a sample of it in the recent special interest groups elections, and also I hope really these things don't happen. Things around the unfair playing field that is being orchestrated in a way by whoever has the advantage over the other parties, but also something around that fear of violence, really, that we have seen it, we know what it can happen, and we fear that it could happen, and there has not been much guarantee that it will not happen, really. I know that it's still calm and quiet, but we've seen it before, and what happens with that? People not showing up, really, and what is the meaning of an election if people no longer trust in the process itself? So I was thinking around those as possible challenges. But last week there was a conference I was attending, and one of the speakers was a professor really, and he made a presentation on the challenge of politics without ideology. He was reflecting on 20 years of multi-party politics in the country, and he says that one of the biggest challenges we have is we don't have ideologies, so we always lean back to my political party, in my tribe, in my religion, and that I fear that I hope it doesn't happen. I hope people don't fall back to, don't give up, don't fall back to what the tribe says, what the faith says, what the political party says. I hope we can still engage as human beings, as Ugandans who are all interested in the progress of this country. So I think those sentiments around what we want to always fall back to, I think it's a very short time for us to outgrow it before 2026.
Yeah.
But I hope it doesn't take an upper hand in how elections and in how decisions are made. Yeah.
Okay then.
For me, I fear the world is, going to dangerous territories.
Okay.
The world in general, because we know even the person that the people that ranked highly on the hierarchy in democracy,
The land of the free.
the land of the free,
Yeah.
are facing their challenges.
Yeah.
So many oversights on things that we don't expect from the free world, and all of us are like, wow, you guys. Is this yes, because I had a conversation with a close family member, and he said, even the Ugandan police cannot beat the elderly like that. talking about protests on the streets in Los Angeles
Yeah.
where an old person was beaten like
Yeah.
that. He said, this is disrespect. And, you know, in a typical African fashion, we were like, we laughed it off. But honestly, it's a sad reality for the world. But also thinking about how close the Middle East is to us in Uganda and how easily these wars can spill over into our countries is a worrying trend, considering Congo is already unsafe. Sudan is already in turmoil. It's just a matter of, you know, jump into the next border and we are in it.
Okay.
In it. But also it speaks to the fact that at this stage anything could really happen, could potentially happen. People are caught in war all over the world. And for me that puts me in a state of unease for our country, because now a lot of people are saying we need a transition, and this question of a transition, people keep saying Uganda has never had a peaceful transition. And I'm saying people, there can be a first time.
Yeah.
There can be a first time, because I want to believe that we can peacefully transition, we can peacefully change government. I want to believe that we can peacefully change leaders and all that. However, there's also something that you need to note about Uganda, like many African countries, and how our leaders are, how they are the personality that needs to rule forever for some reason, and in it they have a prince
Waiting to
waiting to succeed, a prince or princess, either biologically or mentored.
Yeah.
That is a terrible trend for anyone. It is not good for democracy. And I'm not saying people shouldn't mentor people. I feel like if the president had mentored someone long ago, it would have been a better thing for all of us. But right now, it is the fact that we're fighting nepotism. We do not want it to be in the highest level of the office. We do not want it to be at the highest level of the office, because it's the thing that will court tribal sentiments. It's the thing that will court a lot of secretarianism that these people have eaten and these people have not. But I see us heading quickly there, because not only have regions divided themselves, they've also talked about political parties that belong to them.
Yes.
We are going that way. Not only are our politicians preaching the Waganda have done this, so it's time for these people to do this, or the Acholi have done this, so it is our turn, or the Banyankole are bad people. And I want to say that all of us are Ugandans at the end of the day. And if this country catches fire, we are all in this fire. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. That is why we all need to be able to hold our leaders accountable. That is why we need to make the decision that is right for everyone, because the decision that is right for you alone is courting the wrath of somebody else.
Okay.
In democracy, not in democracy, in a country, in leadership, anywhere, that is a dangerous place for us to be, because we exist by a social code that we must do as little harm as possible to each other. So if somebody is outrightly doing the harm and not fearing consequences, it means that they're not worried about consequences. Therefore, the consequences are inevitably going to come, and they're going to be swift with the way they come. So I am very worried. I am very worried. And this is not fear mongering, but it's so that people are aware of the consequences of their actions. You know that if you do not vote, somebody is going to take the ballot on your behalf, and they won't do it for your benefit. You know that if you go and unleash violence upon another person, they might want to retaliate. And that is not going to be a good place for you. You know that if you organize, if you ignore laws of a country that has existed for as long as ours has, what you're going to court is a state of anarchy where nobody respects laws. If you establish yourself as the law and people reject it because they've not established you as the law, what are you going to do about it? There is nothing. So I urge everyone to do what is right. To do what is right, follow the law. Don't accept bribes. Don't give bribes.
Okay.
Show up and vote. Don't beat people who show up and vote. Yeah. But ultimately, hold your leaders accountable. You know, when leaders are going back now to do post-legislative scrutiny, they are going back now to see what the impact of their laws. Show them that their laws, all the laws that they voted for, are not the ones that you gave them mandate to vote, if that is it. If it is, you can show them by voting them back in office, if you feel well represented. But at the end of the day, I feel like what people need to do is do what is right, and also people need to filter information so that they do not get misinformed in the process, because that is a dangerous thing. It's one thing to actually make a decision and say I'm outrightly taking the bad path, but it's another thing to be like, I didn't know. And you know, ignorance is no defense. Yeah, that's my submission.
Thank you, Nancy. Ladies, we have come to the close of our show. It has been a very wonderful Tuesday afternoon. So I'll just ask you to give your brief closing remarks. Nancy, that sounded a bit like your closing remarks.
Yeah. I feel like that's it for me. I don't want to add because I might overtalk for no reason.
Okay. So Ruth, you'll be our closer for the night.
Oh, wow. I think there is still hope. I think it's moments like these that open our eyes to the possibility of change, that open our eyes to the possibility of beginning afresh, to the possibility of doing something new. And I know it's not just for Uganda, but it's for most countries in Africa. Maybe we need to rethink our idea of democracy. From what Nancy was saying, that the father of democracy is facing something that does not look like what we have been taught democracy to look like. So maybe it's time for us as a continent to think of what works for us, what is not working for us, what should be prioritized. Because Africa is different from, so a certain model might not be able to work perfectly in the African context, with our the demographics, the economic standards, different things. That even the climate, I think, has something to contribute to idea of governance systems. But also, we have to love this place.
Yeah.
We no longer have somewhere to run to.
Yeah.
You're not going to the US. They're going to deport you.
Yeah.
You are not going to the Middle East. You don't have anywhere else to go to. So I think it's time for us to take our country seriously, to love this country, to know that we have no other home. No, we don't have any other home, a place to call home rather than this, especially with the migration policies that are coming out, even on a global scale. So I think we all need to find a middle ground and work together towards a more habitable place. Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here. I thank the amazing women on this panel for the thoughts that have been shared, and to the organizers for this space.
Thank you so much, Ruth. We were very delighted to have you. I say we on behalf of Nancy and I, and the viewers as well. This has been I think, one of the most educative talks we have had. It has been a delightful experience. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of yet another Tuesday afternoon. It has been a delightful conversation. Conversations like this regarding our democracy and particularly our 2026 election process are often disheartening, and but I think more than anything they are realistic and they're eye-opening, and I hope that as we go forward from this discussion, what we take from it is that Uganda is our own and we must serve it. It is in our best interest to serve it in the best way possible. Otherwise, the world is shrinking. There's no more space left in the world for us except here where we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we go from this show, let us remember to be citizens of Uganda first and foremost, and to love this place infinitely. It has been a great afternoon. My name is Turiho Danita. I have been your host. Have a great day.